What is going on, everybody? And in this video, I'm going to provide you guys a state of the market and then some things that I am looking at. I use fundamentals and some technicals to determine the positions that I take. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, remember to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. So, state of the market, a lot of chop going on today. We are essentially waiting to see what's going to happen with FOMC. But to get us kicked off, we had some really, really horrible bank earnings. Even on Friday, JPM, 14% on revenue they lost. Also, Goldman Sachs reported today with 13%. So, needless to say, the banks are not doing hot. Wells Fargo did well. We do have Bank of America tomorrow, which will be interesting. But we also have ASML, which is one I talked about in the weekly update. I'm really looking forward to seeing what that does, seeing if the semis and chips could help push the market back up. Tesla really showed strength early this morning, along with Apple. Microsoft attempted to push a little bit as well, but ultimately the markets just kind of rolled over and just stayed pretty stagnant. We had some quick drops, but we held for the most part. So I think we have to see how banks are doing. We have to see what the chips do. ASML does tomorrow. I think it's going to be the biggest play going into tomorrow. That'll probably be the one I'm looking at mostly tomorrow. If they do crush it, I am swinging a very small position in that, just based off of what TSM did last week. So I want to see what they do this week. But being said, again, there's no true real catalyst. It's all purely earnings again coming into this week. It's a short week. Banks have been doing horrible, hence the sell-off. I think a lot of it is again anticipation that rates will be raised. Their Fed is calling, or in the notes have called for 4 rate raises. Nothing is for certain at this point. And Powell came back off and was very dovish about everything. And the last time we saw Powell last week, coming into this week, I don't see anything changing next week at the FOMC meeting. That is on next Wednesday. We'll hear from Powell. No Fed members. All Fed members are on lockdown this week, so no, you won't be hearing anything from the Fed until this weekend. So there's no catalyst coming from the Fed on that side. So we're ultimately going purely off of waiting essentially for the Fed to announce a rate raise. And also bad bank earnings. And so that's caused us to sell. It's caused us to hold here. The thing is that we're holding. We didn't come crashing down. We're holding support. So that's good to see. I think we're actually going to possibly start running later this week, as long as we don't get any other news. As long as we get good earnings, I think we're going to push this back up. I think the push will be temporary until going into next week, and then there'll be more anticipation of the Fed, even though, again, everything's been kind of highlighted. I think the only thing, there might be an emergency rate raise, but not at this point, not now. I think if that happens, it could be March. A lot of people are anticipating March. I was anticipating March even before Powell said anything last week. So we really have to see. We're starting this year off really bad, really choppy. Again, waiting for that first rate raise. When that first rate raise hits, we have taken a pretty big hit in a lot of things that aren't essentially industry leaders. So we'll have to see how much. I think we're going to still correct. We'll have like a true correction, I think, once we get that first rate raise, whether that's announced or it just is an emergency rate raise. And again, it depends on how big of a rate raise it is, time frame, all that stuff depends. So that's why the market's kind of just jumpy and all over and very volatile because of that fact. Bitcoin, talk briefly about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is still still in a very bullish stance here, still holding this 41K mark. Again, it can still drop all the way down to 33 and still bullish on crypto. I know Cardano in itself is having a big week. So that is, I think, going to help drive crypto. So I know Cardano got some big stuff going on this week as well with Sunday swap. So I don't know if that's going to help drive all crypto. It's the only thing that's been running in crypto pretty much aside from NFTs. So Bitcoin in itself, I think, will still have a very big year. It's just getting over this hump of rate raises. I think the market, again, my stance on the market is very bullish. We have to get over the stance on rate raises. Once we get that first rate raise, get a time frame, get numbers, because that's what's going to happen is we're going to get a time frame, but we won't get numbers. And again, that's going to have to wait until it gets closer. They'll say, okay, well, I think we need to do a rate raise possibly around this time. We don't know how much it's going to be because a lot of things are going to come into play. And then what's going to happen is I think they will do an emergency rate raise. But the problem with that being is that emergency rate raise is going to shock the market and going to do some damage. And the Fed does not want to do that. So we'll have to see how they ease into it. We'll just have to see. Right now, they're just anticipating it, and that's why we're just getting massive amounts of selling with no direct news or catalyst behind it. So going into this week, we got Tesla, we got Apple, we got Microsoft next week. We got Netflix on Thursday. I don't particularly like Netflix. It could have a big day. I might play it after earnings if it does, but until then, I am not playing up the run up. Tesla, again, had a huge run today and then just kind of died out. So watching this tomorrow, I really want to watch this, essentially the 1023 mark. I want to see if this wedge holds. If it does not, Tesla's probably going back down to 900, which could be a strong possibility, but I want to see where we do. If the banks keep getting hit really bad, it's going to be hard for even your Tesla that has proven numbers to possibly stay up if banks just continue to do horribly bad. So we're going to have to see about that. But Tesla is one I want to keep on watch for next week. ASML, like I've been talking about, is it's got earnings first thing in the morning. This is going to be driving chips tomorrow. So if this does do really well and gap up, watch all your chips, watch all your semis tomorrow. If it does, that could be something that does help drive the market back up. LRCX as another big one that's actually tagged support here. So if it does tomorrow, this could be another big driver tomorrow to watch. Apple, it's still holding this support of 169. I do like this support. It is kind of wedging here as well. Downward wedge here, and it's got earnings again next week. So if this does hold the 169 mark tomorrow, I will try to take a position to cover earnings into next week. I think that will again be most important, is starting to look at those positions that we'll cover next week. There's some big news on Microsoft and Activision as well today. Microsoft has really been struggling. Something I talked about on the morning. Essentially, in the morning, I do morning like call-ins every morning for pre-market. So if you don't follow me at Hemi at 137, I do that every morning around 8:30. I typically do it. Give you the pre-market, kind of what I'm looking at and everything, and that way help you kind of navigate the market during the day. But Microsoft, I talked about, it's really, they got a lot of different players at hand here. They are obviously, if they get Activision, it's great because Xbox has really been kind of struggling. Something I talked about this morning. I think some of their products might be really suffering over Q4, but ultimately, I think they'll still do well. They always typically do very well. So we'll have to keep a watch on that. E-commerce, I think, might be suffering quite a bit. We have to watch that. They are at a good support. Everything's at support right now. Facebook's kind of a shot in the dark here because they are rebranding. Something I think a lot of people forget, and something I hadn't really thought about is why wasn't it back up at 400 yet? Essentially because they are rebranding and they're trying to change everything. They got all that bad news, and then everything just kind of tumbled downhill since. So now they are rebranding and trying to break away from just being Facebook. So in that process will take some time, I think, before it starts to make its way back up. Earnings could help drive that, but we'll have to see how that goes. And they're also dipping a ton of money into the meta side of it as well, on developers and everything else. So I think Facebook might be playing range for a while before it starts to get some gas again. But ultimately, Affirm, again, Goldman Sachs got absolutely destroyed today. Banks are getting destroyed. BAC, you just a sympathy play today. It just sold off. So we really want banks to kind of hold up. If banks and chips could do well at earnings tomorrow, I think that will really help the market in general. JPM is still slammed down today, trying to find a bottom. BA is still doing really good. So maybe one I might watch. It is starting to get high though. I don't like taking positions after it's run for a couple days, because normally the 4th, 5th day you're really kind of pushing it, because typically it will sell off at that point. Disney's been doing really well. DWalk has been doing really well. Disney looks like it's getting ready to turn over. DWalk is selling off. These are definitely ones you don't want to be swinging for a long time. It's already ran for a couple of days. I expect this to go to 100. If the market decides to sell, it very well could. But right now, the fact that that's driving the market is just showing you the market's confused. So it's looking for something to pump essentially till the market figures out what's going on with Tesla and your Apples and your Googles. So, but that's pretty much what I got. I didn't really give a lot of technical levels. It really just depends. We are at critical levels here. Like I said, especially with Tesla, if it doesn't hold at the 1020 mark here tomorrow, it could be in for. Obviously it's got some support coming down, but we could be in for a bigger pullback in the market in general. So we need banks and we need chips or big plays tomorrow. As long as banks hold and don't continue to sell, we'll be good. And if chips can step up the game and do well tomorrow off of ASML, I really think it could be a big day. But again, we want to see what happens. Pre-market will be the turning point for. Are we going to continue to fall down? Are we going to flush, or are we going to actually reverse this and start having some kind of positivity going into next week? Next week, again, it will all be on Fed, so I don't expect much going on next week. But if you made it this far, remember to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.